Our next reader is Trish Rodriguez. Trish is a writer raised in Philadelphia. She is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, receiving a BS in Systems Engineering and Rosemont College's MFA in Creative Writing. Fiction writing is her dream, though she has been known to dabble in creative nonfiction and poetry. Her writing has been published in Awakened Voices and Animal, a Beast of Literary magazine. She lives in Media, PA with her family, including her cat Elvis and Samoyed Rico Suave. Please welcome Trish Rodriguez.
This is a training disclosure for Cindy, home of the famous chicken patty. It's also called Who Knows What the Tide Will Bring. Dan returned from the dumpster to banging against the front window. "Just tell them we're closed, man," he yelled up to Kevin, who was engrossed in spraying and scrubbing. The clatter continued. Glass rumbled. Dan gripped his mop handle and tapped on the window. While spraying every surface until it transformed into bleach, Kevin complained about his mother. "She took part of my paycheck. She won't eat the Cindy's I bring home." Dan nodded toward the spray. "Ugh, I think I lost a few brain cells on that one," and he waved the fumes away. At first, he thought the moving shadow was a dog. Hundreds of legs moved like a bad toupee blowing in the wind. Furry legs wrapped on the glass. Dan stared at the rattling window. Bugs scurried up the street. Within 9 minutes, the front window was covered with mega centipedes the size of Cocker Spaniels, Poodles, Toy and French, Dobermans, Pugs, a few Labradoodles, and maybe a Shih Tzu or two. About 5,052,000,000,000 mega centipedes. Kevin yelped, hopped back, and sprayed his bleach. The banging grew rhythmic. Dan blocked the window and the door with boxes of frozen chicken and sacks of potatoes. A crash in the back was followed by the sloshing sound of a soda dispenser overflowing. Mega centipedes poured into the restaurant through the drive-in window. Hairy bugs scattered. One of the mega centipedes clicked, and then all the bugs swarmed around Dan and Kevin. While attempting to hold off the onslaught of bugs with his mop, Dan leapt on top of one of the tables. Kevin yelped, sprayed, and called for his mother. Each bug Kevin sprayed emitted a whooping sound, and then 2 more appeared. Kevin kicked. Dan swung. One of the bugs snatched away Dan's mop with its mandibles. With their legs outstretched, the mega centipedes crawled up Dan and Kevin, tickled their ears, noses, and lips. The bugs dug their centipede legs down Dan's pants and up Kevin's shirt. Dan began to name them. There was Larry, the leader. There was one with a red spot on its back. That was Christopher. There was a skittish one hopping around that Dan called Skipper. Kevin sprayed, and Lana and Pamela were created. The store manager, Jack, entered through the back. When he saw the restaurant overrun by mega centipedes, he cursed. And about 1/8 of the mega centipedes surrounded him, wrapped their hairy legs around his mouth. Larry, the leader, cleared his throat, and the hordes of centipedes lowered their bodies. Dan kicked at 70 trillion germs incarnate. He questioned his career choices. Why had he given up on his pursuit of a musical career? Hairy legs reached out and stroked Dan and Kevin. Jack kicked at the centipedes, and the clicking grew louder. Larry, the leader, climbed on top of the register. His mandibles waved and his antennae trembled. While nodding his head at Christopher, Skipper, Lana, Pamela, and by now there was also Timmy, Jimmy, Chucky, Jasper, Jamal, Jose, Kimiko, Pietro, Ahmad, and Jenny, Larry's segments rolled like an ocean wave. We are here for the book. We come to fulfill a dream and emerge from this larval state. Who knows what the tide will bring? Only the hermit crab, I think. That will control the fast food industry. With this act, we will become stronger than the humans. The planet will be ours again. Larry clicked some more and lowered his head. For becoming like the butterfly, we require the book to operate Cindy's. Jack, the manager, stepped forward with his hands clasped. To get the manual, one would need a franchisee license. And that cost $1.2 million. Larry clicked 6 times. Christopher, Jamal, and Jenny picked up Jack, Kevin, and Dan and threw them in the freezer. Kevin wiped away imaginary dust from the shelves. Jack repeated that it was a fine kettle of fish. Dan thought about playing the violin. It's a fine kettle of fish, Jack said. Where did those bugs come from? The drive-in window. That thing has always been dangerous. Somebody threw in an alligator one time, Dan said. I mean before. Maybe bleach created them, Dan shrugged. Bleach kills everything, Kevin said as he sprayed, misting their limited air with bleach fumes. Jack bloviated. However, Dan didn't listen, so there's no longer a record of what was said. After 9 minutes, Skipper opened the door, hopped around the 3 humans, then pointed 4 legs at Jack. Jack shuffled off into the dining room with his arms across his chest and his head down, a fine kettle of fish. From outside the freezer, you could hear a wet, slurping noise that grew louder and louder for nearly 3 minutes. Christopher, the bug with the red spot, entered the freezer. He was covered in blood. Denim hung from his mandibles and front legs. An ear was stuck to his back next to the red spot. He gurgled in the doorway and motioned with 4 bloody, hairy legs to Kevin and Dan. On the dining room table lay a skull stripped bare, except for a few strands of hair and an eyeball hanging from the left socket. Blood speckled all the mega centipedes. Dan rolled his eyes because the floor needed mopping again. Dan and Kevin stood before the crowd of mega centipedes. Clicking and stomping began, rolling through the bugs like the wave at a football game. Kevin inched closer to Dan, while Dan folded his arms across his chest and dragged his foot on the floor to scrape his shoe. You will give us what we want, Larry the leader said. Dan didn't know where to look, at the antenna, at his legs. Christopher snagged Jack's dangling eyeball and stuffed it in its mouth. The squishing sound reminded Dan of stepping on pill bugs and cockroaches, causing him to feel somewhat remorseful. Were they going about their day, gathering food or cleaning up when some klutzy human stepped away their existence? Kevin sobbed, I don't have the combination. Dan imagined getting medals and money for standing up to the invasion. He envisioned himself standing on a podium, holding a trophy that was topped with a bronze mega centipede. With his mother by his side, Kevin would stand next to him, holding one of those giant checks with enough money for college. The 2 heroes of the mega centipede attack. But the walls in the glass storefront shook. Skipper had pounced on Kevin's chest and dug her mouth into his throat. Pamela slithered up Kevin's leg to his hip and up his arm. A piece of Kevin's finger flew into the air and landed on Dan's shoulder. They devoured Kevin, including his uniform, which was covered in bleach and Cindy's secret sauce. Blood sprayed across the room. Once the centipedes finished devouring Kevin, Larry waved his antenna toward Dan. Yeah, so the manual is full of a lot of jargon, Dan said. Skipper hopped around one of the dining tables. Larry, the leader, followed Dan to the office. Dan opened the safe and handed over Cindy's franchising secrets. After handing over the manual, Dan sat on a box of frozen chicken patties. We are legally obligated to tell you this story before you begin your employment here.